This is a historical moment when the Global UA Day is starting. It's taking its wing, and we hope that this will bring a new wave of internet, a internet which will reach to those people who are not able to use the potential of internet as on date. So on behalf of Government of India, on behalf of NIXI, and on behalf of the entire UASG group, I would like to congratulate each and every citizen of this world that they are going to witness a historical moment, these 2 days celebration at New Delhi. So we are starting with the first session, and that session is a technical session, making your website universal acceptance ready. How we have to take it. So we are fortunate that this session is going to be chaired by ICANN board director, who is also regarded as the expert in universal acceptance IDNs world over. May I request Edmund to please come on the stage and join us as a chair of this session, and I request all the audience to please welcome him with applause. Edmund. Thank you, Edmund. Now may I request the moderator of the session, T. Santosh, to please join. T. Santosh is scientist from Ministry of Electronic and IT, and he is leading the Internet Governance Division in Ministry of Electronic IT. Now may I request Dr. Ajay Data. Dr. Ajay Data needs no introduction. He is the chair of UASG, who has led UASG, and because of this, his vision, we are able to witness today's as the Global UA Day celebration. I welcome Dr. Ajay Data. Please come. And we have two panelists who are expert on universal acceptance. They are working on languages in digital world for several years. So let me introduce you Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni. Let us welcome him with the applause. And Dr. Balaji Rajendran, he is working in CDAC. Please, Rajendra, please come, Balaji. Without taking much time between you and session, I hand over the session to Edmund. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil, and thank you for having me here. Really excited to kick off this first UA Day. In fact, this is, for, at least for me, and I think for the world, for the internet, it has been 25 years in the making. When I first participated at ICANN and started the discussion of IDNs, with internationalized domain names, that was 25 years ago. And since then, there has been new generic top-level domains in 2000, where new top-level domains are introduced in 2000, in year 2004. All of this started to bring this challenge that we call universal acceptance to the forefront. And then, of course, in 2009 and 2010, that was when country code top-level domains becoming, internationalized country code top-level domains start to be deployed. And then in 2012, a new round of new GTLDs, new generic top-level domains with longer top-level domains like .engineer, .photography, and I hope into the future, many other languages as well. So all of this, for me is really exciting because, as mentioned, I have been working on this for quite some years. But this particular UA Day, this first UA Day, I think really marks a new phase for universal acceptance and internationalized domain names. Over these 25 years, one of the things is that there has been different challenges. There's been the first 10 years really was focused on working through the technical protocols for internationalized domain names. So all the way from 2003, when the first temporary specifications were developed, and then in 2008, when the technology was the standards, the open standards were finally put in place, that took some time. And then in the next 10 years, it took another 10 years to actually put certain policy technology in place, what we call today label generation process. And that particular process actually took quite some time as well. That is to ensure, because domain names using different languages requires additional policies, and how to technically incorporate it into the internet takes time to develop. And in English, it's very easy when you look at a domain name with capital letters versus with small letters. They work the same. But technically, for other languages, there are some of those situations as well. Certain characters need to be mapped together, but the technology doesn't map it together. It requires a policy to put in place. So the next 10 years were really put in, was the community was focusing on that. And overlapping that in the last 10 years was the actual policies that ensure that internationalized domain names around the world can be used technically and also policy-wise to make sure that it doesn't discriminate against different languages. And then today, this UA Day marks a new phase, as I mentioned, is when, I think after 25 years of work around the community, this is a time for deployment. And this is what the UA Day is about. At ICANN, for myself, currently serving on the ICANN board and on the chairing the Internationalized Domain Names and UA Universal Acceptance Working Group, we care very much about this topic. And in fact, the ICANN strategic plan right now in place puts IDN and UA at the forefront. It's part of the core pillars of the ICANN strategic plan. ICANN also supports the UASG, the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, which put together this UA Day, and hopefully many UA Days to go. However, hopefully one day we will be celebrating rather than raising the awareness. Today, we're starting to raise the awareness from around the world about implementing universal acceptance. Hopefully, in a few years' time, we will be celebrating universal acceptance, true universal acceptance. And the way that I really see it is that, and I've been talking about this for quite a number of years, and hopefully this dream will come true, is that one day, when when the younger generation grow up, they would not remember a time that English was the only language you can use for domain names and email address. They would say, why would the internet be like that? That's when universal acceptance is really happening. And I think I will close with adding this. It is, in my mind, not just about the cultural heritage and usage of different languages for email addresses and domain names. It's also about consumer trust. The users of the internet trust the domain name system today. When you put in an email address, when you use a domain name on the web browser, it should just work. And that's what universal acceptance is about. It's about consumer trust. It's about user trusting the internet. And that's why your website, your platforms need to be universal acceptance ready, not only just for the commercial benefits, because the next billion coming online and coming to your website are most likely not going to be speaking English as their first language, but also that you can speak their language. You can not only speak their language for the content, but also their name and their email address. And that's what universal acceptance is about. And that is why your website needs to be UA ready. With that, I think I'll pass it to the moderator to get this panel started. And this is all about getting your website ready for universal acceptance.
Yeah, Edmund, with your permission, I'll take 1 minute before you hand over to moderator. We would like to welcome all our esteemed guests who are here. So may I request the team to kindly welcome the chair. We don't welcome with the bouquet. Now we welcome with the more thing as the plants. So please accept it. Thank you. Thank you. To Dr. Ajay Data. To Dr. Ajay Data.
Is that how it works?
To Mr. Santosh. To Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni. And finally to Dr. Balaji Rajendran. Thank you, Edmund, for giving me this opportunity. Now over to Mr. T. Santosh. Yeah, you can start with a welcome and then take over. Thank you.
So, good morning, all, and a very warm welcome to all the dignitaries and the guests from various stakeholders who are present here in person and have joined online to celebrate the first ever Global Universal Acceptance Day, which is a historical moment for the initiatives related to Internet, which has been mentioned by Mr. Edmund as well as Mr. Anil Kumar Jain. And a very thanks to ICANN and ICANN supported Universal Acceptance Steering Group, which is UASG, for starting this global initiatives. I would also like to thank NIXI for hosting this event with the support of all other stakeholders. Being the representative of government and also part of the Internet multi-stakeholder community, which deliberates the issues of national as well as the international importance related to internet governance, and also contributing to the ICANN by reviewing its existing policies. That means which started in the year 2009 until it's ongoing, and also to formulate the new ones addressing various issues. Universal acceptance and a truly multilingual internet is one of the critical issues which are being addressed. As Edmund has mentioned earlier, that since the inception of internet, domain names were like google.com or it would be rediff.com, and the email address would be anil@yahoo.com. So these were created in Latin characters. However, internet landscape has changed dramatically over the last decade. Now the expansion of the available top level domain space, like generic top level domains like .grocery on the top level instead of .com, .museum, etc., and the advent of the email address internationalization, basically the availability of email addresses in local language and scripts like secretary at the rate mighty meity.sarkar.bharat, CEO at the rate nixie.bharat. It is right now there. You can send an email to in your own language or 22 official language. Though the internet and domain name system have transformed, many website and software applications still cannot process all domain names or email address specifically, which will be detailed in the coming forth sessions, like having level domains having a length greater than 3 characters, local language, which has been mentioned earlier, that is IDN domains, local language email IDs, that is email address internationalization. So this terminology will be said several times during today as well as tomorrow. Now the Universal Acceptance Initiative of ICANN, supported with the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, which addresses these challenges, and the solution are increasingly becoming available for all the stakeholders. So all the stakeholders means starting with industry, academia, civil society, internet users, and governments also to expand their customer base or the what do you call consumer base by offering products, by offering various technologies, by offering various services to various communities domestically and also in other countries in their own languages. However, all downstream actors in the chain need to be universal acceptance ready to achieve a truly multilingual and inclusive internet. To support truly universal acceptance, IDNs and EAI. So I'm again repeating this terminology you will be hearing a lot during the 2 days. Basically, the application and the systems must be capable of 5 fundamental actions. It is accept, validate, store, process, and display. Now, for the proliferation of IDNs, universal acceptance, and email address internationalization and multilingual internet within India, a high-level working group was set up at Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India during 2021. And it came with a report for implementation of phase 1. So phase 1 is basically universal acceptance so that the domains and the email IDs are accepted by all the application. Say for example, can a person who knows only Hindi, can he book a railway ticket using irctc.gov.in? Is it possible? Please think of it. So the next session, they will make you understand why it is not possible presently and why and how it is possible in the future. So this group has come up with a report by in which there is an implementation plan for next 3 years. Now, coming to India, India is taking a lead in this field of universal acceptance. Now, you might be aware that there are equivalent of .in. .in is the country code top level domain of India. So there are equivalent of .in, that is .bharat in Devanagari and .bharatam in different other languages. So it is there for 22 official languages. Thanks ICANN for providing it free. Now, the current Universal Acceptance Steering Group Chair, who will be the next speaker, is also from India, and he is Dr. Ajay Datta. And we have 4 Universal Acceptance Steering Group ambassadors, also from India. I think 3 are here in this room, who are actively spearheading the universal acceptance initiatives in the country. Now, the technical session subsequent to this will enlighten all the stakeholders who are here, including press, regarding how universal acceptance will impact each one of us and also to bring the next 500 billion internet users. Now, as on date, there would be around 838 million users, internet users. And the rest are not using internet. Why? Because they don't know how to use, they don't know the language English, right? Only 88% of, only 12% of Indian population knowing English. Rest of them don't know English. So the rest 500 million will be coming from India, who only knows, who only will be using their own mother tongue for the usage of internet. So once again, I thank each one of you for actively participating and also to contribute for this historical moment related to internet. Thank you. Jai Hind. So being the moderator of this session, so now I would request Dr. Ajay Datta to give an introduction about what is universal acceptance. Thank you. Over to you. At your comfort.
Thank you, Santoshji. Thank you, Edmund, to have you in India. This is fantastic to have the IDN working group chair for ICANN board here in India with us to celebrate Global UA Day. I'm going to spend few minutes with you to paint a picture about why it is important and why we all should listen and spend 2 days on this topic. What is in for me is a question which we need to all answer, and I will try to spend few minutes in the given time to share that. When the internet started, uh, almost 30 years before, 3 decades before, the domain name system started with the top level domain names. The top level domain name is the part which is the right side of the dot, which is like .com, .net, .in, and the left side of the dot is known as second level domain name. That makes it the full domain name. So software developers thought that there could be only handful of top level domain names, meaning thereby .com, .net, .org, so on and so forth. And they assumed some rules in their softwares. And the rules which they assumed, and these were not the standards given by any organization, they were just assumed by the developers that there could be only 3 characters in the top level domain name, like .com. There could be only alphabets A to Z. This was also a rule assumed. There will not be any non-English character, which is now possibility. There will not be any numbers. They created some rules which slowly started becoming invalid. When the ICANN started rolling out the CCTLD, country code top level domain names like .in, .us, .it, which is a code for each country, then the condition which they formed that there could be only 3 characters became invalid. And they need to modify a bit to accommodate the 2 letters also after the dot. Then the internet started and registering the longer top level domain names, and now you can go up to 64 characters after the dot. That require a further change into the software to accommodate these kind of domain names. Then the internet further changed that it could have a top level domain name in a script or a language of the word of the person's choice. So almost every script in a language is available which you could register an IDN on those top level domain names, and that resulted into rejecting those domain names. So I gave you the short top level domain name, the long top level domain name, and the non-English characters domain names. These are the 3 new categories came in our life, and the internet changed forever. But the softwares could not pick up that speed and that standard change, which happened in last 15 years or so. And lot of changes happened. So .in works almost 97%, 98% of the websites and applications. But this is not really true for the longer top level domain names. The acceptance is an issue. And that is where the word universal acceptance came into existence. That we do not have the real acceptance, the full acceptance of all kind of domain names and the categories which I explained, and corresponding email addresses which comes into existence. Another rule which I forgot to tell you is script writing mechanism, left to right or right to left. An Arabic script gets written from left to right to left, and that is written left to right. So जब हम लिखते हैं तो we write from left to right. An Arabic script is written from right to left, and that was also a need which was required to accommodate in our software applications. Hence, a universal acceptance term was formed to have universal acceptability of all domain names, all email addresses in all software applications. That is the whole concept which got formed by the community so that everybody understands it easily. And it's a very simple concept. I think if you hear it once, it goes in your mind. Universal acceptance means all domain names, all all email addresses goes and accepted as all software applications. Simple, not a very complicated one, but it has technical challenges. It has technical challenges in terms of acceptability, require a code change, require a database change, requires a library change, and hence a group got formed to facilitate that knowledge. And that group is called as Universal Acceptance Steering Group. I am happy to share almost 650 volunteer companies and individuals are part of this group, formed with Universal Acceptance Steering Group. That's an elected body. People choose their leaders, and leaders choose their working groups, and then that's how the group gets formed. And this is a global group. We also thought, this group started in 2015, and we thought that the enough progress has not happened. And the major reason which came out is awareness, not the technical challenges. Technical community could help a lot, but the awareness of a demand, whether I have a, first, somebody has to recognize he has a problem. Second, the willingness to solve it. So first, the recognition to have a problem. So you all work somewhere in organizations, right? Or either your own or the organization you work for. You have a website and you have an email platform. You have both the things. Will your email ID, which is today considered as UA ready? Will your website be UA ready? This test, you can do it yourself by testing some universal acceptance mechanism to try it out. USG.tech is a simple example. You can go there and there is a widget called test your email system. Type your email ID, it will tell you immediately right there that your system is UA ready or not. And there are many examples like this. Another example which you can try it, on your website, there must be a contact page or a newsletter page or an inquiry page. Type in your Hindi email ID or a longer top level domain name email ID. If it accepted well, you are UA ready. Otherwise, you have a bug to solve. And that indicates you that those people who have that email ID, like me, ajay@data.bharat in Hindi, will never be able to become your customer if you do not solve that problem. And that brings the opportunity part, that we lose those customers who have that email ID. Edmund and Santosh has said that there is a divided word in terms of languages. Almost 60% of the word, as per the Government of India report, do not have knowledge of English as a speaking and writing. And this skill is required to access internet efficiently well. And that's where the importance of universal acceptance comes into play, to break that barrier so that people can have entire access online and they can utilize the power of internet as good as we all are. This I would have loved to speak in Hindi today. Since this is broadcasted worldwide, people are watching it, I'm trying to prefer to speak in English. And imagine that if the audience, complete audience sitting today, do not understand English, and I speak in English, how do we convey message? How do we communicate? You have the reward, you have the policies, government have the acts and rules, and if it is not in my language, how do I understand them? How do I break the barrier? So the simple example is, if I have a pmo.gov.in, and that is in English, obviously PMO is an English word, and if I do not understand that English word, how do I access that website? And that's my barrier. This does not go into that, but there is not universal acceptance. Universal acceptance is that if I have that domain name, will it work the same way the English domain name will work? Once I have the acceptance and the working of those domain names, the demand will increase, because currently we have a problem that all domain names and all email addresses do not work as good as the domain names which we use in English or ASCII, whatever we call them. Because it doesn't work, people don't use them, people don't adopt them. And we need to all deliberate and discuss next 2 days, how do we ensure that our all softwares, all websites, all applications are universal acceptance ready, so that those people who do not speak English and do not want to access internet in other than their own language have accessibility as powerfully as we all can. Let me give you a few examples, and then I will end my deliberation here and take it further. the topic which we have is making our websites universal acceptance ready. So let us say I go to a website today and take an example of makemytrip.com. We all know, or naukri.com. I am an employee and I go there. I have a Hindi email ID. Will I be able to create an account? So to create an account, I have to go to a website and say sign in. And in a sign in, I will fill the form and it will ask my email ID. Can I type in my email ID? If I cannot type in my email ID, my acceptance of the email ID got rejected at the first stage. Let us say even if I can type in, and when I say submit, will it validate as a valid email ID? So validation is also rejected. If our validation is done properly and it goes stored in the database, will it be stored in the same format or it will be corrupted or garbaged in the database? It will be processed well and it will be displayed well. So we have 5 pillars: accept, validate, process, store, and display. These are the 5 pillars of universal acceptance. You all can Google it. You will find it very, very easily. There is 2 days you are going to hear this 10 times about these 5 pillars with almost every speaker. So thank you very much with this end note. And we are going to have these 2 legendary speakers who understand this subject very, very strongly. And some of the part of this discussion what we are going to do, these people are responsible to enable it technically in India. Thank you very much for listening to me patiently.
Now, I would request Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni to mention about what is the universal acceptance, how and what should be the implementation pattern to be done by various stakeholders. Yeah, thank you. So you will be having, say, 20 minutes.
I think, can I have my presentation, please? It's not visible, or it's visible? Okay. I think then I have to go there because it's. And thank you very much, basically, for inviting me for this great session. We are celebrating this UA Day. I think globally, we are the first to have this UA Day, and we are very proud that the hard work which has been done for over a long period of time, as Edmund mentioned, almost 25 years, has come to some culmination point. With this, I think Ajay Data also talked about what is the UA, a fundamental part. Basically, it is a foundational requirement for all to have a multilingual internet. Definitely, UA becomes a foundational requirement, just like a Unicode. So Unicode has changed the lives of people. And now you can see a lot of languages being supported. Totally 161 languages are being supported in Unicode. And they are being actually processed, displayed, everything properly. The main challenge what we are trying to solve today was related with the IDN, that is called the internationalized domain names, as well as the email address internationalization, which means that one can have IDN in their own language. Okay, so I can have a IDN like mighty.bharat or something of the sort, and similarly one can have an email ID like anilji at mighty.bharat in their own languages. So having said that, I think it looks simple in the first stage basically, but technically most of the things have been resolved. And as Dr. Ajay Data referred that there is basically a website which is uscg.tech, which talks about all these aspects which I are going to speak about. Okay. So this definition was being talked about, but I will just for reiteration purposes, all valid domain names and email addresses are accepted, validated, stored, processed, and displayed correctly and consistently by all internet-enabled application devices and systems. So this is the definition of a universal acceptance.
And the main idea is that the IDNs and EIs should be treated on par with ASCII. So whatever you are able to do with an ASCII IDNs or ASCII email, it should be same perfectly treated, the IDNs and EIs basically, okay? So these are some of the examples of basically when we talk about TLDs, okay? And Edwin mentioned about the timelines in which this turned basically from an ASCII earlier .com, .net, .res. There were only few basically top level domain. There were 8 including the ARPA, .arpa. But now things have changed drastically and one can have a new short top level domain as well, and one can have a internationalized domain as well as the long domain, okay? So .com becomes basically a generic top level domain basically. It was from the previous 8.1. While .in becomes a country code top level domain, so it's a 2 characters basically for each country, like FR for France, .pk for Pakistan, and so on and so forth. So we have got something like .in for India. So these are called as a country code top level domains. And now we have got internationalized domain, which are something called as in your own language. So we are very fortunate and we are very privileged rather, and we are, I think, globally the first one to have almost all in 22 Indian languages, scheduled languages, all the CCTLD in different languages, okay, including Sanskrit. So these are some of the categories of the ASCII domain names which were previously there, and then we talked about the new short. So now one can have a top level domain of his own choice, like .sbi. So we have got a State Bank of India having a top level domain, or .tata also one can have, or .mcdonald, for example, one can have. So the restriction of 3 characters have gone now, and one can have a longer top level domain basically, okay? And as was been pointed out, that it should be accepted by your systems basically. Otherwise, generally what happens is that the your so-called the validation rejects that basically. The current validations which are there implemented, they reject basically the longer one. So one has to enable more than 3 characters inputting towards that. Then there are certain categories of internationalized domain names. I am not going to go to all of them, but you can have a look at it on the screen. And we have got on the right hand side, you have got bharatbhasha.bharat written in idn.idn in Hindi. Bharatbhasha.com is the Hindi again, but .com is idn.ascii. The third one is idn.idn, and one can have idn.idn in Punjabi and other languages. So you have got a different categories of the internationalized domain name, and they should get accepted into the system very well. So this was been talked about, that if you take any website, for example, I'm going to speak about website only currently, because then we talk about different software separately. So in the website, especially what it was been talked about, that you should be able to have some inputting mechanism, though that is not a part of the UA at this moment of time. It's not a part of a UA. UA only talk about all these 5 pillars basically, which are there: accept, validate, store, process, and display, okay? So you should have some inputting mechanism by which you can type out your IDN URLs or EI basically, and it should be also able to display consistently. So sometimes what happens, if you don't have the font basically, or the font is not properly developed, then you might feel there is some boxes coming up or some garbled messages can come up. So one need to ensure that the inputting mechanisms are really good and up to the mark basically. Having done that, basically, once you input your what is called the IDNs or URL into a form of a website, it should be able to display, as I said to you, display correctly, properly. You should be able to input as per the language standards goes basically. So Indian languages are syllabic in nature, so one will need to see to it that a valid syllable gets formed over there. And there, I will come to that portion because I got another some 15 minutes to go. So one is your system should be able to accept the basically URLs or the EI. And now I'm going to use a term, something called the A label and a U label, okay? So A label is nothing but a ASCII equivalent of a something called the Unicode label, okay? So U label is a Unicode label. Why this is required? This was required just because of the fact that you are fully aware that the domain name system resolution, which happens basically, it only permits the ASCII character range, that is LDH, that is the letters, digits, and hyphen only. So if you know that whenever you are having this URL, then you are just able to have the alphabets A to Z. Then you have got something called the digits 0 to 9 and a hyphen. Only these things were permitted. So if the domain name system is only accepting basically, or resolution system is able to accept only ASCII, then what happens to our something called the Unicode range, which is supposed to basically get resolved. So in this case, there was a via media which was been found, and that via media is nothing like to convert the Unicode into, or IDN into something called the Punicode. And Punicode is nothing but an ASCII encoding. Okay, so this is how your systems should get equipped to handle both A label as well as the U label. Okay, this is one part. And okay, there are some technical terms also, probably most of the people will like to understand also. So there is something like when you input something, it should get normalized. So I will just give an example of in Hindi to you people, that on the character keyboard, you got a matra, then you got a matra separately. So you can compose a, and there is a separate character a also as an encoding. So it should get mapped to the singular one because it should not have a dual representation. So that is called the normalization. Let us understand it in a very, very simple term. Then there are something called the protocols, as was been told, that it's not a work of something called the 1 year or 2 years. It's almost like 25 years, and hundreds and thousands of people, volunteers, have worked into this part. And as I explained to you today, the Unicode is 15, version 15 is there, almost like 1.5 lakhs characters, encoding characters, unlike English or English Latin, basically. And they pose their own challenges, basically, because some of them, as I explained to you, are syllabic in nature. Our Indian language are syllabic in nature. Each and every language has their own nuances in terms of script writing, left to right script, right to left scripts, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we should be able to use validation to be done by the IDNA protocol. I will restrict right now at this moment of time here only. Then storage, as was been explained, that you should be able to store correctly, and the storage is UTF-8, which is a Unicode version basically for the legacy system, especially to support. Then processing, when we talk about the processing, it should be able to actually, just like ASCII mail, you should be able to actually match it, you should be able to sort it out, you should be able to search it out, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the process related things one need to take care of. And then the display, as I explained to you, that it should be displaying it properly without any loss of data. Okay. So this is an example of ASCII at ASCII.newlong, basically. And as you can see, it's the .international is a top level domain. It's a long one. And as you can see, this particular website, I just nothing offending, but this is the IIT Bhilai website. And it accepted that, which means that it has accepted one stage, the first stage of the something called the UA-ready. The first stage of a UA-ready is like you should be able to accept the new short and a long. Okay, so that's the first stage of the UA acceptance. Okay. Now, if you look at the second screen, the example is Unicode at alabel.alabel, which necessarily means that now I am having an email in Indian language. The mailbox part is in the email in Indian language. Okay, and that got rejected over here. As you can see, there is an error. Okay. This error comes, how it comes, I will also explain to you in a short while. Okay. So this is not UA ready now. Okay. Second, this is the Urdu, rather email ID basically. So it is the RTL @RTL.RTL, and this also got rejected. So which necessarily means that if you have got a website wherein you are expecting a customer to come to you or connect to you, and if he is having an email ID in his own language, I don't think you will be able to respond to him back just because of the fact that your website doesn't support the requisite something called the language technologies over there. Okay. So this is just to give a brief of, this is an ASCII email basically. So you are all aware, and it gets accepted by the systems very well wherever. As I said to you, all the functions like sorting, indexing, everything can happen properly. One can send and receive email, one can create a mailboxes, and it is working seamlessly across the world. Okay, so at the left side is a something called the mailbox part and local part. Right side is something called the domain part. So there are rules to actually validate, and those rules are very simple. Since it is a limited character set A to Z, it can get validated using something called the regex pattern. A simple regular expression pattern can be utilized to validate an email, basically ASCII email. One more important point just wanted to highlight over here is that if people are doing HTML encoding, in that there is an element, input element type, basically if you use email, then the browser itself basically validates it to a little bit certain extent. So it checks for there is a sign of @ then there is something below, before that there is, but it doesn't do the exact validation fully. So to do exact validation, you need to have a regex pattern to do that portion. Okay, and ASCII email is very simple to do that. Coming to the, let us give an example of an Indian languages over here. So this is an email ID, again same structure. So you got a sampark@iigf.bharat. So sampark is a mailbox part or a local part, okay, and the domain part is iigf.bharat. So domain part basically has to be validated. So if you can notice that all these characters are coming from the Unicode repertory, okay. So which means that they are coming from the Unicode code page and Devanagari. This is the Devanagari code page, by the way. Okay, so there are certain rules, regulation, script mixing is not permitted, and this and that, and those rules are basically very complex rules. I can use the word very complex just because of the fact that different languages have their different writing styles, and the rules of formations of the syllable are different over here. So there in this case particularly, since and even the Unicode version, as I explained to you, for the 15th version is having 1.5 lakhs of characters and representing almost 161 script across the world, actually languages across the world. So one cannot have, and I cannot be a language expert for all languages. I don't understand Chinese or I cannot understand Japanese. So how am I supposed to now in this case make my website UA ready? Because if I don't know the languages, the life has been made very, very simple by the USAG as well as the ICANN and all the community members that technically the issues are being resolved basically. Let me explain to you that technically all the issues are being, most of them rather are resolved basically. Okay, so there are policies and guidelines which has been made. The policies are made at something called the global level. Certain policies are there at a regional level, and certain policies are something called the language specific basically. So Hindi, Marathi, there is a difference basically in the character set, and then the regional level policies are being implemented. So if you look at the validation of this particular email or on your form, then you cannot do it with a simple regex pattern. Let it be very, very clear that you cannot do it with a simple regex pattern, and hence you have to use certain libraries basically, which is called the IDNA libraries. So those are something called the IDNA protocol. So the current version of an IDN is 2008, and one can use the IDNA protocol to validate that. And life is absolutely simple. You just make a use of a library. That's all. The libraries are already available in a free and open source. So you have got a libraries for .NET is already built in, PHP is already built in libraries. Then you have got Python libraries, you have got JavaScript libraries, and so on and so forth. So one can just go onto the usag.tech and see to it that what library best suits to you, and you can just make your website you are ready. So it's simple. Okay. So this is some of the things which I just tell me. I'm speaking on the time. Okay. So some of the things just on the background side that you should appreciate that at a backend there is a humongous amount of work which has gone basically. Each and every language expert was consulted, then the public consultations were done, the community process were done, and so on and so forth. And over a period of time, we have resolved to a great extent in terms of having some solution to the universal acceptance issues basically. Technically, as I explained, they have been resolved. Okay. So these are some of the, even in, if you look at the ASCII domain names or ASCII email ID, you do have something like the phishing or spoofing, a similar, confusingly similar characters. So L and 1 looks at a smaller point size, look the same. So I will give a classic example of ICICI.com and LCLCI.com. They look same basically. So one can get really confused over there in terms of the basically ASCII domain name as well. So there are certain threats into the ASCII domain name. They are being taken care of. That's not an issue. But if you look at the Indian languages, especially, you may come to a conclusion that since Indian language characters are many more and 22 Indian languages and the left to right script, you will have more problems. No, I don't think there are more problems. The problems are being resolved just because of the fact that all these things which are there, the rules and regulations which are there, they are built into something called the IDNA protocol. Okay, so that IDNA protocols are implemented very simply, seamlessly, and it's very, for a developer, absolutely, it's just like using any other API. You just call that and your job has been done. Okay. So these are some of the examples which I explained to you on the screen. Mudra.bharat. That's one is with the r. So second one is with the n, and the third one is with the g, and they look similar. Okay, but they are being taken care of, and I will explain in a moment how they are being taken care of. Okay. As I explained to you, the domain name results with the something called the Punicode. So I am not going to again touch this slide. So this is how the Punicode encoding happens basically. So paid.bharat support if it is there, then it gets converted to XN hyphen, and this is the protocol which gets converted into the, and it's a bidirectional. So it's lossless, bidirectional. 100% conversion can happen into this. So I explained to you that the stage 1 of UA, if you look at it, one should be able to support the short as well as the long TLDs. This is the stage 1, you complete the stage 1. If you go to the stage 2, you should be able to support, your system should be able to support IDN TLDs in the Unicode or Punicode, whatever things are. And the third part is that if you have got an email basically which is connected to the form to get feedback from the end user or communicate back to the end user, then you should be able to send in his own language basically. So the mail should go reach out basically. So this is the stage 3 of compliance in terms of the IDN and EI. I explained to you this part that the current browser, which is the HTML5, basically takes care of certain tags, and then there is the email tag input, rather in input element email is there or input element text is there. If you currently select input element as an email, then you are Unicode email Unicode gets rejected here. So people,
You have 2 minutes.
okay, fine. Okay. The stage 2, so what I would like to suggest here is that use regex pattern HTML input element as a text here, and at least try to see that you should be able to accept the Unicode characters into your system. That's the first part basically of the acceptance part of it basically. Otherwise, what happens on the first stage itself, we use the email tag, rather email attribute of the input element, it will get rejected. So please use the text and try to remove the limitations on the 3 characters basically which is there. Stage 2, use of libraries depend upon the technology used, as I explained to you. Most of the validation can be undertaken at the client end, while for certain specific validation services may have to be rewritten, and applying validation methodology is not supported by other libraries. Okay. So there is one also important thing is that one need to validate the TLD list with the ICANN published list basically going to the server. Okay, so I will skip these slides because I think I got some limited time now. So this is the as I explained to you, the IDNA protocol takes care of all these compliances. So generic ruling compliance with the ICANN, generic rules compliance with the .in registry. For the NIXI registry or Indian registry, we have added one more something called the layer in terms of valid syllable, because though that is not a part of a global policy, but in order to restrict that invalid syllable should not get what is called the IDNs or ER should not be there with the invalid syllable. We have actually have the syllable formation rules, which is very unique to India basically. Okay, and then there is a ABNA formalism and so on and so forth, and variant tables which I explained to you. So now the variant table is in a part of a root zone label generation rules are there, which takes care of your variants which I showed to you on the screen. Okay, so there is at a global level on the top level domain part of it, it may happen that the 2 top level domain may look similar. If you look at a Cyrillic and a Latin, it might look similar. But in order to avoid that, then there is something called the variant table, which is in a form of a root zone top level generation rules, which are there when we need to look at it. Okay. Okay, this was I explained to you that there is a validation engine in the yeah. Okay. So I think this is the validation. I just will take a 1 minute just. Okay. And this is how the validation is being done for the ABNF basically, or for the syllable, and it's been passed for registration purposes. Okay, I explained to this. Also, then there are character tables which are being permissible characters which are there for the IDNs. So these are some of the yellow marked which are there. They are permitted. Rest of them are not permitted. And there is something called the basically rules regulations which are being pushed into the system by way of ABNF. And this is how the last slide, okay, this is let us say it's a info@evaris.bharat is the email which we want to accept. The local part validation with the help of writing certain recommended rules and regulations which are there. Then the domain part one can validate using the IDN 2008 library. And the TLD part for validation we need to write a custom logic so that it can have a cron job running at a server, so it can bring the fresh list every time, and one can validate the email like this. Okay. I think I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh Kulkarni ji. So Mahesh Kulkarni ji has explained how to implement a IDN and email ID in the local language. So the technology behind that, what are the protocols used basically to come out with this kind of a domain name? And he has been coordinating with this for ICANN for past 15 years? More than that, yes. So he has been coordinating with ICANN for more than 15 years, so that it is available in the root zone. So what is root zone? Basically, from where we get this .com, .in, or .org, and any top level domain. So the implementation part is what he has explained. Now we have the next speaker for today. It is Dr. Balaji Rajendran. He is from Center of Development of Advanced Computing. So he will be explaining the technical myths and reality on what is UA. Over to you, Dr. Balaji. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is basically a session on a very brief session on implementing UA ready websites. Actually, I should thank Nixie for pushing us to engage with the governments. So during the discussions with various state government departments, we just figured out what are the technical challenges that they are facing. And we tried to bring out this particular presentation, trying to disambiguate them and try to help them. So let me, without taking much of your time, let me straight away get into the point. So when we host multilingual websites, we assume that there is a requirement for separate IP address for every domain name. Basically, if let us say if there is English and Hindi, you need a separate domain IP address for English website and separate IP address for Hindi website. I know that IPv4 addresses are quite scarce and it is difficult to get also. So, but technically speaking, you don't really require it. There is no need for a separate IP address for hosting multilingual websites. You can use a single IP address for hosting multiple websites. All you need to do is use a concept called virtual hosting. And actually, this particular slide demonstrates how we have done. And there is a very detailed description also how it has been done. And we have explained it using the most common web server, basically the Apache web server, which has been used. So basically, you can create a virtual host in Apache using the Punycode. Mahesh Kulkarni sir has already explained about Punycode. So the same thing, you need to convert the Punycode is nothing but the ASCII representation of the Unicode characters in LDH format. So, so that you need to convert that particular multilingual domain name into the Punycode characters and write the virtual host, the set of statements, and then you need to place them in the right place in the folder. After that, you can start with your own contents in the local language. So this is how you do it, and then you restart your web server and it will start working. So a single, basically what we mean to say is a single IP address can be used to host multiple websites and multiple websites. So the second part is basically about the font and rendering challenges. Of course, there are people who are actually raising some concerns, but we would like to state that there is nothing as such. As long as everything is supports Unicode, things are going to be fine for all of you. And of course, all the HTML5 and everything actually supports it. So this is some of the things that we have shown. Actually, we have created domain names in multiple languages, Tamil, Hindi, Sanskrit, and Urdu, to show different types of domain names and characters. And then there was also a concern whether the resolution, DNS resolution, will there be any challenges in DNS resolution? Of course not, because the same the A records, we say the domain name actual resolution records are called A records. The address records, instead of the actual the domain name, will be representing them in the Punycode character. So the Punycode of the IDN is actually used, meaning that particular thing will be used in the A record, DNS records, and so automatically the existing systems and the resolvers will understand working with them. So this is something where you can see the A record. Of course, you can, if you are using IPv6 address, of course it supports IPv6 also, you can go for a quad A record, and you can actually host domain names. You can just add it to the these particular names to the this thing. Of course, your service provider has to support that particular entering of that records values. That's it. And of course, obtaining the Punicode, you can actually use a tool for obtaining. If you are using a punicode.com is one of the websites where you can get it. So this is a Punicode representation for IIRF.Bharat website. So then there is another common myth, because today browsers do not recognize certificates which are not TLS enabled or SSL enabled. So there is, of course, there is a red cross if you don't give a SSL or TLS certificate domain, certificate for a given domain. So people generally think that of course, I need to buy a separate certificate for my English website, English domain name, as well as a separate website for Hindi domain name, as well as for if you are using any other Tamil or Kannada or whatever it may be, you need to buy a different TLS website certificate. Theoretically, yes, but generally there is a trick again. A workaround is which you can also save money. Also, is basically a single multi-domain certificate is available where you can add all the domain names as a subject alternative name, SAN we say, and then it can host all the websites in the given domain name. In fact, for this example that is shown here, iarf.in as well as iarf.bharat and iarf.india as well as iarf.hindustan, that is Urdu, and iarf.bharatam in Sanskrit. All the 5 domains are using the single certificate, single TLS certificate, and that is working fine. You can actually access them. So how do you do that? You can also do things by yourself. You can, this is just again a hack. You can actually go to any certificate service provider, but we have used something called as a CertBot, which is a tool which you can download, and you can actually try to create certificates from it. And this is the process which is illustrated here. And of course, you can actually go to the website also. Otherwise, you can download it and then generate these certificates by using the Punicode. So everywhere Punicode is only going to be used, so you don't have to face any technical issues or challenges here. Then other myth was basically the navigational challenges. Basically, what if I am going to have the file names, for example, index.html, submit.html also in the local language? Yes, obviously you can have that. There won't be any issue with that. But primarily speaking, you are trying to make the content accessible to everyone. So the main focus for you should be ensure that all the landing pages, wherever the user is going to land, those pages has to be completely localized. That is number one. But obviously, you can have all the file names also. Say, for example, welcome.html as namaskar.html or swagatam.html, whatever it can be in the local language. Preferably, extensions alone has to be kept in the same thing. Say, for example, PHP kind of extension has to be in the language of English, but all the other things can be fine. So, for example, in this thing, you can see that we can see a .php as well as a .html this thing. HTML actually in Hindi also you can write it. In local language you can write it. It is recognized by the systems. But a file which is like a PHP, which has to be passed by a PHP interpreter, or a JSP which has to be passed by a servlet engine, obviously, or a Tomcat or a web server, obviously you need to keep the extension as such, but the file names can be in Unicode characters. So there is nothing without it. And of course, as a developer, there is you can actually have a language switcher at the top of the web page, which can where you can store the variable. So whatever the user has selected his language, you can keep checking it, and based on that, you can actually redirect the user to the corresponding web pages. So this is about it. So here are some things which we have created as a sample, and more descriptions, detailed descriptions are also available. Full-fledged documents with complete guidance is available in this particular website, irf.in/universal acceptance. And also we have sample websites hosted for Hindi, Sanskrit, Tamil, and Urdu, because we just wanted to try different language options here. So that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balaji, for the presentation. So again, So I think the audience over here has got two different scenarios of how the audience is made, first of all, or the email IDs are made, and how the systems are able to view it properly. So what are the different techniques or what are the different methodologies to be done? Starting with whether we can use the same IP, that is yes, and also domain certificate from various certifying issuing authorities. Now I would request uh, Mr. Edmund to give his remarks on both the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you actually for a very good presentation. I'm sitting here and I'm really excited because as I was mentioning, this is something that I've been working from for a long time, and it's great to hear from other engineers actually deploying IDN and UA systems and to share their experience onto this. And this is a very important part of UA Day. Just adding on to what was said, you could also find some materials from the UASG website. There is framework for making applications UA ready. That is a document called UA 026, UASG 2026. That's the document that you can take a look at as well. And also there's another document, UASG 004, which gives you some data and some information which you can find on the UASG website. These are, really kind of additional guidelines to help set up your website to be UA ready. And one of the things that I did want to highlight as was mentioning about some myths or some considerations is that the specific fix for databases or particular interfaces to handle internationalized domain names or email address internationalization, the specific fix is usually quite simple, right? You just need to take in that particular domain name or email address. However, do not underestimate that the system-wide requirement, because every single system utilizes domain names and email addresses. And your username system, your sign-up system may utilize these identifiers. And therefore, even though the simple fix is, quite straightforward, the complexity lies in the interdependency of those domain names and email addresses across your systems. And that's why I think, really thinking through it and putting out a roadmap is very important. And tomorrow, actually, we'll be talking a little bit more about this and some case study from ICANN and also from .Asia, where that I work from. In terms of fixing some of the issues like send mail, configuring send mail. But it's not just send mail, it's all the registration systems, right? That utilizes the username. And that's something that is really interesting. The other thing that I want to highlight before we go to Q&A is that at this particular point, we always talk about sharing these experience, and as you can see in the UASG website as well, we try to stay away from saying best practices, because I think these are current practices and there are many different ways to deploy UA, and it has to be that way because the different platforms, different systems needs to be implemented differently to serve the communities and to serve the needs of those platforms. So, I think that is the important thing, and part of UA Day is to welcome everyone to participate and to have your implementation. These are some tips and these are some guidelines, but your implementation needs to be addressed to your specific system. So I think those are the highlights I want to add.
So thank you, Edmund, for that overview on both the presentation. And I would also like to mention that this universal acceptance industry is a $10 billion industry. I mean, 10 billion industry. So wherein which India should tap this area, wherein which we can come up with various solutions. And in India, there is a local initiative of universal acceptance run by the FICCI, where community can join and contribute in various activities. So with that, we can go to the question and answer. I hope the mics are available with the person over here. So can we have the questions from you? And the questions through online will be no questions from online. Yeah. Please feel free to ask any questions.
Santoshi, I want to say something in addition to before, because there's no question, so I thought 30 seconds. What Edmund said is a very important point of integrated approach of acceptance email addresses. So let me take an example of an life cycle of an email address in an organization. So let us say admin signs up, comes on a website and buys a service. So what is visible is a buying acceptance of that email address, creating an email account, but that email, that data will travel back to store department, to finance department, to sending the invoice, to CRM to create a customer record, to compliances of a tax where you record, keep the data. And then that data is not just data, this data need to be searchable in every form where you need to pull off that customer. And that require another change in that further interfaces of how do we search based on that email ID if the text box is not you were ready to accept that input of that email ID again. So it is not just that web page, that's a complete integrated system. So what Edmund said is a very important point to remember. Changing and universal acceptance on a simple web page in a very one part of the entire system, but possibly you may call yourself you are ready from that perspective, but to really put it in use and action, that require the complete change of a life cycle. And what practice we always suggest, so do not try to become UA ready overnight. That's so it's a phased approach. Put the UA as a principle in your organization in the pipeline, and whenever you need to edit a code or modify a code or replace an application or procure an application, ensure that you are complying that UA journey of that email address and domain name in your application. I thought that is important to just explain what you are saying. Thank you. Yes, Sunil, Sandeep.
So, first of all, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I was actually taking notes. I found it that interesting and informative. I just had one question. Since the original objective of UA is for an inclusive internet, how do you tackle languages without scripts within the scope of UA?
So I can answer this question. Universal acceptance, and Edmund, then you can add, so you will know what he is asking. It's a very simple. Universal acceptance is a very small boundary. There is a lot around multilingual internet. So your question around multilingual internet is valid. Universal acceptance is a very small boundary that all valid domain names, all valid email addresses must be accepted in all software applications. That's the boundary we have, right? Now, any domain name cannot be there without the script or the email ID without the script. It has to be there. Beyond that, there is a multilingual internet. We have dialects. So we have 19,000, I'm saying you are referring to them, which are not already part of the Unicode. So let us say Rajasthani as a language is not part of the Unicode, and people are fighting that battle already. And hopefully that will get into the Unicode. The moment it comes in, so technical thing will there. But this is not where we go as a UASG. UASG confines its boundaries around the domain names and email addresses. Edmund, you want to add something?
Certainly, if I understand it correctly, you're talking about certain languages that don't have its own script yet, especially not in Unicode. I guess as Ajay was mentioning, the first step is to have the script, and then the second step is to have it included in the Unicode system. And there is a process for doing that. And once that is done, then it comes back to part of what I mentioned in the opening remarks is that the community has been working on what is called the label generation rule sets. Those are policies for particular languages. Once you have the script, there are certain policies that need to also be put in place before internationalized domain names can be utilized as domain names, and the registration policies are put in place. So it is a long journey, but there, the good thing is that there is definite places that to bring that discussion to.
Good morning, sir. Sir, in fact, I have one small query. The query is that, sir, yesterday just we got a message that we have to make a Hindi domain. Like I am from looking after Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs. So we are going for the mpa.sarkar.bharat like that. We are on the process and I hope to get it today itself. But sir, so far the emails are concerned in languages other than English. In fact, I'm handling a project that involves all the assemblies of India. So I have to look after all the regional languages also, because we have to support regional languages in all the state assemblies. And sir, so far the other regional languages like the in 8th schedule, like the Maithili and all these things. So for that, sir, how can we get the help from Nixie? Because it is not a very easy task and not a single day process. It will require, sir, some sort of assistance from the Nixie in a continuous way. So is there any mechanism to have the help from Nixie in days to come? Because sir, we will be in need of that. We have to follow, we have to comply. So is there any mechanism, sir, from Nixie to get it done?
Yeah, so I will answer that. So as mentioned in my welcome remarks, the government of India has come up with a roadmap for the implementation of the universal acceptance. So this is a 3-year project in which all the communities, not only government, all the communities should come together, and industry should have their part, government should have their part, like as you had mentioned, domain names as well as email IDs. Now, there is a other community which we call as developers, software developers. So they also have a role in to bring in to accept this domain names and email ID. Now, coming to your specific query, yes, definitely NIXI as well as Government of India and the whole community will be definitely helping you out. So kindly join this community and be part of that and know exactly what to be done. I mean, there are few procedures which has to be done. So kindly understand during the today as well as tomorrow. So you will get to know what are the specific steps to be done, and definitely Nixie would be helping along with the community.
Santoshji, I can add a bit. As per the policy, you know that the support center is also getting created for these tasks. Registering 22 domain names is on the fly. You can do it right sitting here. All the languages are there live, and you can pick up a registrar and register just like you do. But I think you will have to go sarkar.bharat through NIC. So NIC has to register all the domain names for you in all the domain name. That is very much simple. That is not the challenge. Content changes is again that's a multilingual internet part, which is services available. But support centers are getting live very soon, and these are the support centers which is getting admin for you also. The support center is getting created in India for universal acceptance technical support in India, and there's going to be a dedicated number and a support team. So any organization, private or government, can call and get the support. What can be solved by phone or otherwise routed to the technical team or technical resources which are available in the country. That is getting created here. Thank you.
And in future, there could be many email service providers also who will provide email in, say, any regional language. So the thing is that it is creating a business, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. So Harish Chaudhary, U Ambassador. I just want to add to the what Mr. Santosh and Dr. Data said, that as an ambassador, we are there to help you, sir. I hope, sir, please. So we are there to help you, and just let us know, and we will help in any way. So that's from my side. Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Thank you.
Here, sir. Yes. I'm from Government of Karnataka. So Government of Karnataka already have the domain name in Kannada script, karnataka.sarkara.bharat. We have few issues with respect to Pani code because we know that that has been converted to the Indian script will be converted to Pani code. Normally the length of the URL, it would be of 64 characters. So when I come with karnataka.sarkara.bharat, almost all my characters will be 47 Pani code characters, and the remain left it is only 19 characters. So there, when we try to, because we already have given many URLs to our departments also, we find difficulty while giving that name because I have for my project e-Kannada from Center for E-Governance. E-Kannada, I have taken it as an Indian Kannada script itself, E-Kannada. That almost crosses, it came up to 66 character overall. So this issue, like based on the 64 characters, we find that issue like giving the particular department's name except from karnataka.sarkara.bharat. So how can we handle this?
So one approach would be why you need a third level domain. Every department you require a third level domain. So if you have karnataka.sarkara.bharat, try as a what you call you can go at the fourth level also. So that is one solution. Or you can make it as a different directories slash karnataka.sarkara.bharat slash the specific department. That is one approach. And Kulkarniji, would you like to explain about that 64 characters? I believe it is 128, right?
No, actually, that's a if you your point is valid, but the number of characters which are there expected into the domain part is more basically than what you said. The total length, including the email, if the email local part, if you look at it, it's almost like 765 bytes basically. So just would like to highlight one point to you when since you are on the subject. What happens is that when you store into the UTF-8, as far as the Devanagari code page goes, so if you convert a Devanagari code page into a UTF-8 character, a single character gets into 3 bytes. And that is where your point came in that regard. But however, the length restrictions are, for the IDN perspective, the lengths are a little bit more. Yeah.
No, so I want to add, Mahiji, I think there is no specified date for U label, right? From this is Punicode is the ASCII string. Ultimately, that is the Punicode, and Punicode I just converted in front of me. That can go up to 255 characters, isn't it? Right? And Punicode, so you will not have any challenge from that side of you. That we have already running live up to 3 level or 4 level IDNs there. So that should not be the challenge because it will ultimately get into the Punicode there. How do you store the IDN domain name in a database? That is very upper layer of the DNS system. Really the IDN does not go into the DNS system, right? It goes to the Punicode, goes to the DNS system. So as far as DNS is concerned, it sees only the Punicode, not the U label, right? And that can go up to 55 characters. So it should not be the problem. Edmund?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can add a little bit as well, the 64 actually should be 63. Limit is each label, so between the dots. So the last, dot, and that's 64. In between dots, there can be another 63, 63.63.63, and the full length of a domain name, I think currently the maximum is 253 octets, 253 bytes. So there should be plenty of space still. So maybe the system itself need to take in a longer total domain name or URL.
So,
But ma'am, again, we have ambassadors and technical persons and the support. So contact us and that will be taken care. Go with an answer that this problem is solved.
sure, sir.
Yeah,
That will
thank
be
you.
very helpful.
Thank you.
So any questions from this side? Left?
Thank you, sir. Now that Edmund is here, and since we have a representation from ICANN board, we heard that ICANN has in next 5-year roadmap full focus on IDNs and UA related activities, and that's actually a very good thing. I just wanted to know, like, in terms of like in some couple of specific things that we should, as a community, expect to come from ICANN in next, say, 3 to 5 years. What we should be looking up to as a specific things coming from ICANN, how they will be supported. So if you could put some light on that, that will be great.
Certainly. Thank you for the question. I'm speaking more personally than from from ICANN perspective and participating in the board. So I can say that the board is very keen on internationalized domain names and universal acceptance. I think there are a few items that is on, kind of on the agenda, and we're pushing forward. First of all is, of course, the support to UASG, the Universal Acceptance Steering Group. We continue to fund a lot of the activities, including the UA Day, and that is a big part of it. But included in that is also something that I will be presenting tomorrow, which is a case study on ICANN's own UA readiness. So ICANN itself, its own systems, is going through the process of becoming UA ready. And that relates to another part that is really important in, I guess, from the board's perspective, is the new generic top-level domains. So in order for, and also that's personally my passion as well, I'd like to see in the future with the new GTLD program that many more internationalized domain name top-level domains are going to be in place. And also, therefore, the system for ICANN to take in applications for new GTLDs, that will also need to be universal acceptance ready. And there is a roadmap towards making sure that the new GTLD application process is also universal acceptance ready, and therefore the new GTLD program will support many more new IDN TLDs to be created. So I think those are perhaps some of the highlights. I don't have ICANN colleagues here who can help me add to it, but I think tomorrow we will have more from the ICANN org. But these are some of the items. And personally, I have also been, pushing for ICANN to grow the team for IDN and universal acceptance, and that is also an important part, I guess, from the board we're looking to push forward on.
So since 1998, there were only 8 top-level domains, that is .com, .net, .org. I'm talking about Indian context. Now, during 2012, there was this first round of new top-level domain, which is called generic top-level domains. And as on date, there are 1,488 top-level domains, of which Indian companies or Indian organization has taken only 10. Now, ICANN is coming up with a new round that may be next year or maybe in 2025. So our request to the community over here is we should get some IDN top-level domain. You must have seen probably, or I will like to mention, there is a top-level domain in Devanagari in Hindi. It is .vidya. .in equivalent, it is there, but whereas other Devanagari, I think it is only Vidya is there. And for the information of the community over here, as on date, 15,000 .bharat IDNs have been provided to different users. 20,000. So there is an increase. So any questions? Developers can ask specific questions related to that. And there is an issue of cyber security also. So I see people from area working on cyber security also.
Santosh, I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about TLDs taking in Indian language, Indian scripts. But as per my understanding, the price is very, very expensive for Indians. So if I can work out something special pricing for India, only then we can go about it. What do you say about it?
I suppose I can add to this. Not again, not speaking from ICANN board, but me personally serving on the ICANN board. First of all, that's a very good question, and it's not just India; it's also for other developing regions as well. ICANN does have an applicant support program that is put in place. And the applicant support program provides funding for the application fee. And this time round, actually, as the board has actually made resolution on one of the recommendations is to expand the application support program. In fact, now the upcoming application support program provides funding support not only for application fee, but will also provide funding support for auction fees, because one of the very big challenge is when you apply, if there are more than one application for the same top-level domain, there will be an auction, and it favors, if you will, a little bit more on the big conglomerates, right? But for the applicant support program, that actually provides funding support for applications coming from developing regions, and it supports for both the fees and also auction fees as well. Hope that helps.
So I would also like to add on this. So for the information of the people over here, to get a top level domain, it is 2 crore Indian rupees, or rather 175,000 US dollar. Yes, this issue was raised by the government. I mean, we are part of the governmental advisory committee in ICANN, and we have raised it because we have only less number of top level domains. So the thing is that we need to have active participation in ICANN so as to get this IDN domains to get in a reduced price. Thanks for the question. Any further questions? We have 5 more minutes.
Hello. I'm also a research scholar in National Forensic Sciences University. So my question as a research scholar, so I would like to know that how many .in domains, especially Government of India domains, are UA ready, and what are the roadmap that within 3 years, how many percentage we were planning to achieve for the UA readiness of the government domains? Thank you.
So regarding government domains, that is on sarkar.bharat. So we have a plan of 3 years. It can't be done within a day or two. But if you talk about IDNs, we are approaching around 36 central government ministry to convert their Hindi content. For your information, there are 54 central government ministry. If you add cabinet secretariat and president office and all, so it will be more than that. So we are all the government ministry has a Hindi content. So in India, I mean, the government central government ministry all have Hindi content. So we are planning to move in a phased manner to have their equivalent IDN. So it will take more than a year. And see, universal acceptance is not only the IDNs, it has to be the email ID also. So any email ID, say from a person from Orissa, he or she should, if he or she is emailing from her Odia email ID, that has to be accepted in the system also. So that is the second approach. The first approach is IDN. Second approach is to accept the email IDs. So again, it will take more than a year, and all the communities have to work together to achieve this whatever universal acceptance. Yeah, thank you. Any
I can add a little bit to that, and perhaps Ajay can add as well. In terms of kind of looking at the websites, the maybe the top 1,000, 2,000 websites in India. In fact, the UASG does have a framework that looks at the global 2,000 websites that are, whether they are UA ready or not. Maybe that is a methodology that can be brought to India and look at the top websites in India, to have a measure of how the UA readiness situation is specifically in India as well. I guess if we use the same methodology, then we can potentially compare the worldwide, measure, how UA ready and versus how UA ready India is.
Can I add to this?
As you want to add something?
Uh,
I am asking you
Ajay, I would like
about your report about the Indian websites.
So I've done a fair bit of testing myself. I work with Radix as a consultant. Radix is a new GTLD operator, and we basically, like USG does they took the top 2,000 websites based on Alexa rankings, and we did a deeper research over there. We distributed the top traffic generating website based on industry, from e-commerce to tech to food and travel, just to see what's the acceptance rate like. And once you break down industry wise, then a new perspective comes into picture, where I would have assumed that at least the e-commerce platforms would be more ready to become UA compliant, but they're not, unfortunately. And those are the websites that generate most amount of traffic. But to Dr. Data's point, I haven't actually gotten into testing any government websites as yet. But yes, the one example that I have, casually sitting at my home on my laptop, I've just tested IRCTC. Obviously, that's one example that comes to mind. But I think, given the diversity that India has and is lucky to have, let's say, there's a long road ahead as far as testing is concerned, and making sure that not only the content is visible in the language, but actually it's UA ready. Because it would be really ironic if a website is showing the language but not accepting that same email ID uh, on the forms over there. So yeah, we're there, Harish, myself, and other folks over here who can help out in this endeavor.
I would like to add to this basically. See, the report what is being talked about in terms of the global 2,000 websites also included some of the Indian websites, also Government of India websites. Possibly 50 to 60 websites were there from the Indian side, basically, including the private ones. So as I explained to you in my presentation, there are stages of UA readiness, basically, and you cannot do it in one day. That is what Dr. Ajay Data also told. So when we talk about stage one is the acceptance of a new, basically short TLD bus. That's one part. And then the second one is the longer one in terms of ASCII only. So as far as the survey goes, it's almost like depending, because we tested with all 6 categories of an email, including the RTL and so on and so forth. So all 6 categories are there from ASCII to this. Overall, if you ask percentage wise, it is something between 8 to 12% is a basically for the tested website, 8 to 12% is a UA readiness status at this moment of time.
So a follow-up, for which particular case? For the new long, new short, 8 to 12 acceptance rate?
See, actually what we observed is that new long and new short are acceptable basically. While IDNs, if you take it, it's except for the RTL to RTL at those are not been accepted much basically. The percentage is lower. But if you look at ASCII, new short end, their percentage is quite high. That comes in 12% to more, because people have just put restriction on the length of the characters. That is one part. Okay. And if you look at an IDN, as I said to you, some of the cases it can move from 8% to 12%.
We agree. Kind of the data matches with our research also, because it's about for new short and new long, we have an average of 85 to 90% acceptance. And the moment we put in the IDNs over there and the local language related domains or emails, the percentage drastically drops. So we saw like a 35-40% acceptance rate over there. But like Kulkarni sir said, that if you go from RTL to RTL, it will further drop to whatever percentages that he's talking about. So it's fair.
So RTL is right to left, right?
Yes.
So for the information of all, so there are certain terminologies which has been used. So kindly
Yeah, those
understand.
cover Urdu, Sindhi, and Kashmiri language.
Right.
From Indian side. Yeah.
So the session which we have discussed gives. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me? Okay. I have specific questions like, I'm really enjoying this insightful discussions, to be very honest. When this Dot Bharat has come up with 22 languages, I have booked my site Sushanta.Bharat in Bangla. I speak in Bangla, Bangla as a language. So when I was looking for similar domains, I said Dot Bangla is another TLDs which is already available, right? And it is very close to my heart because I speak in Bengali, I speak in Bangla as a language. Now, Dot Bangla is considered as a CCTLD governed by Bangladesh Telecom, right? Now, this is where the confusion or the conflict comes. I consider Bangla as my language, which is governed and considered as a CCTLD governed by a country like .in is managed by NICSI. But it is across, it is not bounded by any kind of a country and those things like. So Bangla is spoken in many people residing all over the world. It's like English is not confined to UK only, it's not only England and English. So I just thinking, any kind of a thought of such kind of TLDs, which has a far-reaching things beyond the country, are not only governed by a CCTLD, but maybe given similar kind of a thing. Because I can go to a register which is beyond Bangla's Bangladesh Telecom. I don't know what is your thought, because maybe it was not discussed, and when it was created, it has not been put on table. But now when I feel as a Bangla speaking person and a Bangla as a CCTLD, these questions come to my mind. I think Edmund or many of your colleagues from ICANN, if you can help me answering this.
Happy to add to it, but I think the expert is right next to you, because there is actually an active discussion in terms of the policy for CCTLDs and IDN CCTLDs, and the choice of the top-level domain. Of course, it is based on an ISO standard, ISO 3166. Bangladesh would have .bd as the CCTLD, but as the IDN CCTLD was opened, each country would be able to, a country and territory would be able to apply and operate the an IDN CCTLD, relevant to the country name. So the requirement, of course, is that it matches with the country name. But your question brings up a very interesting point, which is it happens to be that the country name and the language name is very similar, and therefore the string chosen is there's some overlap. The question then is whether a GTLD, a generic tuple of a domain, can represent the language as well. So there, I can safely say that currently there is no restriction from the ICANN process to apply for a GTLD, a generic tuple of a domain that focuses on a particular language. In fact, that has been done in the past as well. That being said, the generic tuple of a domains does have a particular part that that allows countries to make objections. You probably have to balance the two, because it does have implications to I guess the sovereign country in that sense as well. I don't know if Anil, who's the co-chair for the CCNSO on the IDN CCTLDs on the selection and deselection of the IDN CCTLD might be able to add as well.
Thank you, Edmund, and it's very interesting question which Shushanto has asked. Basically, we have learned that there are two type of what I am saying is लेना पड़ेगा. Hello. So as Edmund has rightly said that there is no restriction in choosing a language or a script for GTLD to register yourself as a TLD. But if you go for CCTLD, there are restrictions. So what are the restrictions? Number one, even that IDN should represent a territory. It means that it should specifically represent, suppose I am saying dot Bharat, it means that it represents the country or territorial thing. Similarly, we have chosen dot Bharat in Bangla, means it represents the Bangla territory. This is one. Second, it should be in a specific language, and that language should be supported by the script. Okay, so these are the second condition. And the third condition for IDN CCTLD is that it should be approved by the community. It means that overall community in, say, West Bengal, unless the community which include the government, the industry, the spoken people, they together send an approval to ICANN that yes, we support this, only then you get the IDN CCTLD as a delegation to you. But there is no restriction for GTLD, as the new GTLD wave is going to come in 2024 or 2025, as Santosh has said. Edmund, we will try that India, because it is a multilingual country and multicultural country. I think you will see ICANN will apply in bulk GTLDs, and hope that India should be able to lead the UA revolution, which you are leading from ICANN, and Ajay is working on USG. Thank you.
If I can add a little bit more as well, you mentioned about dot Bangla, but in Bengali, you can apply for dot shop or dot website, right? It doesn't have to be the language as the top level domain. What it opens up is really a wide opportunity. So I think the passion for the language doesn't have to be the TLD specifying the language, right? The TLD could be actually shop, website, technology, or something like that.
Actually, a little funnier part, my surname is Data. I believe that data must be given to me only, but it is going to be contested very heavily worldwide. So it doesn't make sense to delay this process in a lengthier legal process for years to come and never get allotted. So you still fight, and there are battles going on last few years on .Amazon, for example, and there are many controversial scripts which people would like to have. Who owns one is always a question, and they become into a very long process. So what he gave is a very good idea. If you want to kickstart, do something, pick up some good string and just go ahead with it, which is less controversial to start with. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will also add, Tata company approached ICANN to get .Tata, but there is a province in Morocco named Tata, so they couldn't be delegated. So there is also a similar kind of issue which is being discussed in ICANN. So that concludes this first session of today, and here in which I would like to thank Mr. Edmund from ICANN and Mr. Dr. Ajay Data from SGen Technologies, Mr. Mahesh Kulkarni from eVaris, and Dr. Balaji Rajendran from CDAC. And thank you all for contributing and participating in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, audience. Please join a tea with us in the outside the auditorium. Yeah, next session is 12:30. Please join on time. Maybe 5 minutes before the session start. Thank you.